All right, Rogue Phase 5 DPS boss guide for Sunwell. Let's go. This is going to be a fun one because rogues are actually good again. There's a whole bunch of stuff we can Cloak of Shadows and Vanish, and we actually have a lot of fun in Sunwell. So I'm going to cover all the little tips and tricks and things that you can do in Sunwell. So yeah, let's get into the guide. But before we do, I do have to say, as always, thank you to all of you guys on the Patreon who support me. These videos are not financially viable and I wouldn't be able to do it if not for you guys on the Patreon. So thank you so much to everyone here that has supported me on the Patreon. It means a lot. And if you would like to join, check it out, link below. All right, so let's get into the video and let me show you first the weak aura I designed specifically for Phase 5 rogues that will alert you when to Cloak of Shadows, when to Vanish, and other reminders like the demon slaying reminder that I had last phase is built into this as well. So let me show you what it looks like. So this is the weak aura I built for patrons. So all you guys on the Patreon, go check the Patreon post, grab it. It's available there now. And basically, this has what you've already seen in the previous phases, which is Demon Slayer missing reminders for all the Demon Slaying bosses. So that's here as well. Now, on top of that, I built on what I did before, and I thought, you know, why don't I just have cloak warnings for things that rogues should be cloaking anyway, so that if you get it on you this phase, you can just cloak and it'll remind you so that you don't forget. So what I did is, the obvious is the burn on Brutallus. If you get the burn on you, this will show this giant icon that will tell you to cloak. Then I did it for the wild magic debuff as well, which I think this is actually one of the most handy ones, is because on the Kalecgos fight, there's a wild magic debuff, but you only want to cloak specific ones, which is the threat one and the missing debuff, the debuff that makes you miss more. So this weak aura will tell you when those debuffs are on you, and then you know that this is the wild magic that you should cloak without missing it. And as well as that, I have one for encapsulate. So on Felmyst, if you get hit by encapsulate, you can actually cloak it. So yeah, this will also warn you to cloak on encapsulate. And finally, for Kil'jaeden, this will also warn you for that if you get hit by Fireblend. So yeah, that's built in. And as well as that, I actually built a Vanish timing weak aura as well. So this is built for twins. It does need more testing, so all you guys who grab this, please do test it out for me and make sure that the bar works and everything. But basically, this should, if I've done it right, is if you set your focus target as the second twin, like so. So let's say the summoner here is the focus target. You set them as the focus target. When they target you and start casting conflict on you, this should show up this bar, which will tell you how long you have left to vanish. And just to show you kind of what it should look like is I set this summoner as the focus target. So pretend this is the lady that's going to be conflagging me. And if I unstealth now, it should play a loud sound, and then the bar will come up when the spell starts getting cast on me. So yeah, that's basically the Vanish conflag timer. So please do test it out if you're a patron. I really want to make sure this is working and everything, because it's one of the few fun things we can do on that encounter. Alright, so the first thing for the Kalecgos fight is you do not need to expose on this fight generally. Now, your mileage may vary based on how your guild does the portals, but you can see here I run in and I don't expose. This is because typically for this fight, because of you going up and down with the portals and how the portals work, a lot of the times it's going to lead to the expose falling off. And that is what you do not want to happen. So yeah, just be aware that the expose is not recommended. I would tell your warriors to be refreshing the Sunder instead, because if you have more than one warrior on the raid, one warrior might be below, another might be above, and this way they can keep the Sunder debuff up on the boss here instead of having it fall off if you have expose, and then they need to build up Sunder again, and it's a whole mess. It's much better, I think, in this fight for most guilds typically. Now, this is not every guild, but most guilds typically, I would generally not expose armor on this boss, just because of the uptime issues with this. Unless you have two rogues for some reason and they're going up and down at different times, but not many guilds have that special two rogue type of situation going on. Alright, now as far as your first set of cooldowns for this fight, typically you're going to be wanting to save them for when you're downstairs in the portal. This is because typically, not every guild, but typically a lot of guilds are going to need to burn the demon a lot more than the dragon up top. It's pretty common for most guilds to say hold on the dragon while we burn the demon more. So this means you're trying to increase your DPS on the demon section of the fight. So what you want to do typically is you save your cooldowns for whenever you portal. Most guilds I've seen, typically rogue is roughly around second-ish portal. So you go down, you take the portal, and once you're in the portal, here you actually you can use exposed armor again. So I experimented. I think in this kill I wasn't using it, but overall I do feel that you should throw up an exposed armor once you take the portal down. Get a nice 5-stack going because you're going down there with the rest of your melee group usually. So the exposed armor is just worth. It's super worth. So I would pop the exposed armor, get your rotation going, and then burn all your cooldowns. It's typically what I would do with your cooldown usage for this particular fight. Now, a little min-max DPS tip I can throw in there is that you should be watching your portal timing. So you see here, Spectral Realm ends. When's it ending? You want to be paying attention to that because you don't want to be ported up with like 5 combo points left on the Seth Throva in particular. So make sure you use your combo points as you're reaching the end of your timing window so that you get ported up without just wasting them. Now, if you want to really min-max, you can actually throw a Demon Slaying Potion here as well. So that's up to you how min-max you want to be though, because if you do use a Demon Potion down here, then when you're back up, you're going to have to use another potion again, your Major Agility or Flask Potion. Now, with your Cloak or Shadows, you can cloak the debuff on this boss, both Wild Magic and the Arcane stacks. But you don't actually need to really cloak the Arcane Buffet here. So you can see I mouse over the Arcane Buffet. So you don't actually have to really worry too much about this one. Particularly, don't clear your Arcane Buffet if you're going into one of the early portals, because then that's just kind of wasted, right? But if you feel you're in danger, you're lower HP, you've got a whole bunch of Arcane Buffet stacks on you, like 5 stacks or something, then yeah, you can cloak it. So I left it off the weak aura warning because it's kind of up to you when you feel you need to cloak it based on if your healers are alive or if your raid's struggling or whatever it is. But generally speaking, I would say I feel a lot more comfortable saving my cloak for the Wild Magic debuff just in case I get hit by the bad one, which is the red Wild Magic and the gray Wild Magic. Those are the two that are kind of rough here. So I think I cloaked this at 5 stacks when I was testing it out. Yeah, I cloaked at 5 stacks here on this one. But yeah, typically you want to save that cloak, I would say, for the red or the gray Wild Magic debuff. But again, if you have my Patreon Weakaura, it will pull up a big shiny icon telling you that you have that debuff into cloak. So yeah. All right, Brutallus. Now, Brutallus is probably one of the easiest fights for us as a rogue because we don't really have to do anything. Everyone else has to do stuff, but we literally don't do anything. The only thing you have to worry about here on Brutallus is, as you see, is that after you run in, the melee are going to try to space out well. You can do range 5 if you want. I believe the burn range is 4. But outside of this, once you're initially stacked like this, you can see the melee set up nicely. We're all stacked a little bit away from each other, and we know we're not in range of each other. You're basically good to just stand there for the rest of the fight. Brutallus isn't a dragon. You don't have to worry about tail whip or anything. You literally just stand there and do your rotation after your setup. It's a very easy fight for us. The only thing you do have to worry about is if you get hit by the burn, make sure you cloak that. So that's really easy. Just save your burn. You save your cloak for burn. Again, my weak aura for this phase will tell you if you have burn as well. So yeah, just make sure you cloak it if you have burn. You don't have to worry about burn swapping from pets to you. I don't believe the pets are burnable. At least I've never seen a pet get hit by the burn and spread it to me. So yeah, it's really simple fight. You just stand here. Now, cooldown wise, the one thing you do want to keep in mind here is if your guild is killing Brutallus longer than 5 minutes long, most guilds are in that just over 5 minute range, it's a really good timing window for you to be able to get 2 sets of adrenaline rushes. So you want to make sure you burn that first adrenaline rush really early on. I recommend after your first slice and dice so that it's back up ASAP so that you can get that second adrenaline rush in nicely towards the end of the fight. Now, one last thing I will throw in there is you can vanish to survive if your guild is wiping. So you do need to be away from Brutallus, not having him facing you, and if you're one of the last people left alive, you can vanish and survive sometimes. So just a heads up, you know, maybe save that little vanish if you don't need a threat reset to hopefully survive. All right, Felmyst. So with Felmyst, just keep in mind, she or he, I don't know if it's she or he, but the dragon is not a dragon, a real dragon. So you don't typically get hit by tail whips and things. So just be aware of that. As far as I know, Felmyst does not seem to tail whip. So yeah, heads up, you have a bunch of range, but you should still be stacking with your designated melee stack group typically, just for dispel and such purposes. So the only thing rogue wise to really worry about this fight is that the encapsulate, if you do get targeted by it, you should be able to cloak. So this means that if you get hit by it, you can cloak after you get hit by it, which is really nice. So you don't have to preemptively cloak anything. You can get hit by it and then basically cloak the encapsulate. Again, the weak aura will come up with a warning buff on the screen to show you if you are encapsulated and to cloak. So if you have my weak aura, it does warn you about that. Now the gas nova stuff is cloakable, but you should never use your cloak on that. It just let the dispellers do their thing on that. As far as DPS wise goes, the ads here that you see spawning in the flying phase, these, as far as I know, do not seem to count towards your pass. So just be aware that all of these ads here, they don't really count. But, you know, if you want to be a good rogue and help the guild as much as possible, this is where you'd be throwing your grenades and your flurries and such if you want to help kill them faster and such. But just be aware that this does not seem to count towards your pass. So yeah, just be aware of that when you're doing your Onyxia type phase. But besides that, that's basically the Felmyst fight. Don't stand near people to get encapsulated. If you get encapsulated, use your cloak. Don't get hit by the breath, and that's basically it for rogues. Alright, twins, just a heads up, if you are using my weak aura, again, make sure you set the Grand Warlock Elithis as your focus target so that the weak aura can pick up your focus target and know what's going on. So yeah, just remember to do that every time after you wipe. Okay, now the thing to know about twins is it's a little bit of a weird fight and it's a little bit buggy. So as everyone knows, the main mechanic to be scared about is the conflag as a rogue, but you can vanish the conflag. Now the thing to keep in mind though with vanishing the conflag is that it seems it's very buggy in how it works. So one, sometimes it will interrupt. So let me show you the cast getting interrupted when you vanish. All right, so you see here, I am the conflict target. Ellis is cast conflict on Snowme. When I vanish, this cast will interrupt. So you see, I'm gonna back off here and I'm gonna vanish and it gets interrupted. But just keep in mind that I've been talking to a bunch of other people and I've heard from other people that sometimes it doesn't seem to interrupt the cast and the cast still continues. If that happens, it seems to be a little bit buggy in that the cast can continue, it will hit you, it won't do anything to you, so it will act as if you're just immune to it, but then it will hit everyone around you with the conflag. So just be aware of that. If the cast isn't interrupted, then you need to be away from other people in case it bugs out and it hits them instead. Yeah, so I don't know why that happens. Every time I've vanished, it's worked successfully like this, where the cast is interrupted, it's not recast at all, and you're good. But yeah, just keep that in mind that the vanish conflag here is a little bit buggy. So I don't know why it works like that, but that's the way it works. So the advantage of all of this, of course, is that as a rogue, you don't need to use your trinket, right? You don't have to have a PvP trinket generally. Unless you get really, really unlucky, you shouldn't need a PvP trinket because you can just vanish and you shouldn't have to worry about conflag at all, basically. I would still, again, recommend that if you are picked for the conflag, you run out because you don't know if it's going to bug. Like if it bugged out and I was still standing in a melee, I could kill them all, basically. And I have heard of people where it happens to them. So if you want to play it safe and you see the cast isn't interrupted, then you should sprint and run out so that the conflag doesn't kill everyone around you, basically. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that the vanish does not seem to reset your threat like 2/3 of the time. Sometimes it resets your threat. We don't know why or what mechanic makes it sometimes reset threat and sometimes not reset threat, but that's just the way it works. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you can see here, I'm gonna cast Vanish here, and my threat does not reset. So yeah, just be aware of that. no threat reset on your Vanish. I did find that it was more likely to work if I Vanish really early on. I don't know why or what, but even then it wasn't 100%. So do not rely on the threat resetting from Vanish, because it bugs out 2/3 of the time or more. Okay, so Muru fight is one of the few fights where we don't really have any fancy Vanish or Cloak things that we can do here. We pretty much just play like a typical melee. But the good news is that the melee don't really have all that much of a job to do on this fight. It's literally hit Muru, hit the ads, kill the ads, go back and hitting Muru, rinse, repeat every phase. The only thing to be keeping in mind here is the darkness. So this darkness cooldown here, you just want to be aware of that darkness cooldown and get ready to run out when darkness is coming. Do not expose on Muru if you're swapping off to the ads constantly, because that will mean expose is dropping and it's bad. So for most guilds, I would expect a lot of guilds are not expose armoring on Muru, but again, your mileage will vary. But if you're swapping off to the ads constantly like this, then do not expose Muru, because you don't want that exposed armor to be dropping. Now, rotation wise on Muru, I do like to start off with a 2-point slice and dice to build up just combo points and get the ball rolling. Then I usually refresh a big slice and dice after that, and usually roughly around that after that time sometime, the tank has brought the ads in, they've got decent threat on them, so I do a big slice and dice, then I swap to the ads and pop all my cooldowns. Make sure, of course, that you're getting a nice cleave. Now, the only thing to keep in mind here, you can see as I'm doing that as well, is that if you are assigned to the ads, some guilds assign a rogue to go kick the mages. It just kind of depends on what your assignments are. But if you are assigned to the mages, you have to save your kick to go kick the mages and bring them in. But typically, like I said, what I'm doing is I'm getting a big slice and dice, making sure the tanks have threat on the ads, then you swap to the ads and you just blow full cooldowns on them, basically. And it's basically that. You just rinse and repeat. And if you want to be a helpful rogue, try to kick the mages. It does help. The other thing as well is you can have grenades as well, which are handy for these, so I would recommend you're using grenades. And there's actually frost grenades as well for this fight, which you can use to kind of throw at the void ads. Not on these guys. Do not frost grenade these guys when you're standing in between of them. That's probably a bad idea. But you can, and I have seen some guilds use frost grenades to throw at the void ads if there's too many of them. But yeah, so it's basically as a rogue, it is literally just rinse repeat. You go on Muru, you hit him, you build up combo points, you swap to the ads once it's good, and then you cleave down the ads and so on until Entropius spawns. And once you're on Entropius, it's pretty much just DPS race. You just zug and don't stand in any like void zones and things on the floor. But Entropius is the really easy phase, at least for melee. You're just mostly just zugging and voiding, standing in dumb things. But the one thing I will say that is really useful in this fight is this Weakaura here. So you can see how I can see the threat on all the nameplates of all the ads. This is very handy. I highly recommend, if you don't already have something that shows threat on your nameplates, that you have one. I'll link it in the guide, the text guide below. It's made by Red Tusk, is the one I'm using. You don't have to use this one, but you should get some sort of threat on nameplates display, because of the so many ads you don't want to run into early before threat is established and then kill yourself because you got too eager on the ads. Right, make sure that the tanks have threat, and the easiest way is just with threat on nameplates Weakaura. Alright, Kil'jaeden. So I actually have to borrow Bobcast footage because I actually haven't been raiding as much. I'm actually working on a secret second YouTube project right now. But I still want to get this guide out for you guys, so we're going to use Bobcast footage for the Kil'jaeden stuff. But Kil'jaeden is actually one of the more straightforward fights for us in that there's not any really fancy stuff that rogues do. We have one thing we do, which is if you get hit by the Fire Bloom, so we're going to see the Fire Bloom go out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1... 0. So Fire Bloom should be coming up now. So yes, if the Fire Blooms go out and you're hit by the Fire Bloom as a target, then you cloak. So you save your cloak for that. That's basically the only real extra fancy thing that rogues do. Outside of that, we're pretty much just hitting Kil'jaeden when the ads spawn and the reflections are up. Most guilds are having the rogue swap to them once the tanks have aggro. So you can see here, once the tanks have aggro, you swap to the reflections and you cleave them down. You help kill them. And then you basically gather up in the bubble when your guild says to gather up, and that's basically the fight for rogues. So yeah, that's basically Sunwell. Kil'jaeden, funny enough, is one of the easier fights, at least from a rogue perspective. We pretty much just save Cloak for the Fire Bloom and then gather up when the guild says to go gather up underneath the shield. So you can see here, Bobka gets the Fire Bloom, he cloaks. It's pretty straightforward from the rogue perspective. So that's the guide. Again, if you want the Patreon Weakaura or you just want to help support me being able to make WoW videos, then you can check out the Patreon below. I will say a big thank you to everyone that supported me through all of TBC. It really does mean a lot, because without you guys on the Patreon, I would not have been able to make a living from WoW in TBC. Because you guys know I don't really do clickbait. I do very guide-focused videos, and I don't worry about rushing them out or anything like that. I make sure they're good, and when I release them, it's good info. So yeah, it's only possible because of you guys on the Patreon. All right, so that's the boss guide. I'll have more mini guides coming out over the next few weeks, and a big announcement coming up with my secret YouTube, or not so secret YouTube project in the next couple of weeks as well. So yeah, pay attention for that, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.